Every community has storytellers, the people who capture the moments, the challenges, and the victories that define where we live. Today, we're joined by one of Palm Beach County's most respected voices in sports journalism, Tom D'Angelo of the Palm Beach Post. Yeah, thank you for joining us on our latest episode of the Palm Beach Current. My name is Chris Moody. I'm pleased to be joined today by award-winning journalist Tom D'Angelo from the Palm Beach Post. Tom, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Chris. It's great to be on here.
Yeah, so, obviously you've done quite a bit here in your time in the area, reporting on many different things. I'd love to talk to you a little bit about that today. Get your perspective on, the Palm Beach area and see where the conversation takes us. So you've covered the area for many years. What originally drew you to this particular newspaper, what you did in sports? Tell me a little bit about that.
It was the only job I could get. It was 1981. I've just celebrated my 44th anniversary in the area. What I like to tell people when I speak is in 1981, I graduated from college. I got married. I got the job. I moved to Palm Beach County. So I'm married to the same woman. I have the same job, and I'm living in the same county nearly 45 years later. So that tells you where my life is, where it's taken me the last 45 years. But I grew up in the Boston area, and I went to North Quincy High School. I graduated from Northeastern University, and I was working at the Boston Globe in the internship. It was the program from Northeastern, and I just flooded the areas that I kind of knew with resumes, and I had some relatives down here. Anywhere I knew somebody or I thought might be a fun sports town to work in or area for sports to work in. And this is the one that called me. And, I actually got the call on my honeymoon, and I got the job sight unseen. I never came down for an interview. I got the job over the phone and packed everything we owned in a small little U-Haul and drove down. And I started in September of 1981. And I'll tell you, this is how unfamiliar I was with the area. And I had relatives here, but I didn't spend much time here. Boston being mostly a professional sports town, it's certainly not a college sports town, at least wasn't back then. I did not know, and I wasn't a big college football fan back then. I've grown to love college football, one of my favorite things. I did not know which school between Florida State was in Gainesville and which was in Tallahassee when I got here. So that's how little I knew about college football. But, and then also when I got here, there was one professional team, the Miami Dolphins. So it's grown a ton. I got lucky. I got into an area that was about ready to hit its peak when it came to sports and grow. And now it's, it's one of the fans aren't the greatest. It's a very transient population, as we know, which means the sports fans are very transient. There's not a lot of people who grew up here or were born here that were fans of the teams that started here. 3 of the teams weren't even in existence when I got here as far as the pro teams, but it has become a very good sports area for things other than the 4 professional major sports.
So what is it like, Tom, to come from a city like Boston that's so passionate about all their sports teams to a place like Palm Beach County? I mean, living here now and having been here for quite a while, you've run across people from New York, people from Boston, people from all over, really. And you're right, there's a big transient side. How do you, as a writer, appeal to that base to capture the imaginations of the people that have moved here and the people that were locals?
Well, it's interesting, and that's a great question because, and as many people know who have followed the South Florida teams, been to games down here for sure. You could go, depending on where the team is. Now, it's different now when for example, the Panthers are 2 times the Stanley Cup champion. So Panther fans are jumping on the bandwagon. They're filling the arena. Most times you go to a game in South Florida, and even if it's the Dolphins, the I guess, legacy sports franchise in South Florida, if they're playing a New York team, a Boston team, if a Philadelphia team, sometimes Chicago, you're going to get as many, if not close to, fans there from the other team because a lot of them live here, and a lot of them, especially in the winter sports, are different with the Marlins. But the Marlins are different as it is because they have very few team sports fans who live here. But those other sports where they're seasonal, where they play during season, you have a lot of people from other places down here, snowbirds down here for the winter, who go to these games and cheer for their teams. And you play the Heat play the Knicks, or the Panthers play the Rangers, or or the Dolphins play the Patriots during the Patriots heyday. It's amazing how many fans from the other team fill that stadium. So we're very conscious of that when we're covering our team. Now our coverage has to obviously focus on and center on the teams we cover. It's going to still be the majority of our readers are going to be South Florida sports fans, but we don't shy away from it. We have not shied away from writing about those other teams. And when the Dolphins are playing the Patriots, one year the Patriots practiced 19. It was before COVID. They practiced in West Palm Beach. They came down. It was the opener, so they came down 3 or 4 days earlier. They had a couple of practices at a college in West Palm Beach, and we went out there. I went out there and did a couple of Patriot stories. If that was that was the Vikings who came down early and practiced there, I guarantee you we wouldn't have been out there doing stories in the Vikings. So we're very conscious of that. And yes, it does. Sometimes it does drive some of the things we write. But again, it's not, it's not the focus. The majority, the focus still has to be the teams we cover.
Right. Talk to me a bit about high school sports, because I know, certainly here, Texas, California, probably those 3 states, the high school sports are everything, right? I mean, give me an example of a high school sport that you've covered, maybe a particular game or a player that really transcended or became bigger than any of the pro sports stories that you would do.
Well, in this area, it's football mainly. There have been Hall of Famers, there have been college stars. A lot of guys in the NFL have come out of Palm Beach County. That was another thing I got used to getting down here. I covered high school sports really 1 year, but I've stayed in it. I've done columns, and I always try to each year try to find a nice high school story that I could do a column as I've gotten older, started writing columns. One of my favorite things to do when it just comes to Palm Beach County and covering sports in Palm Beach County is go out to the Glades and go out to Belle Glade. There is such a history. First of all, it's a very underserved area. So a lot of people don't know about it. They just are, they're just not treated fairly in a lot of different things outside of sports. There's other issues we won't get into that they just kind of get the short end of the stick. But when it comes to sports, when it comes to athletes, man, they have produced a ton of them. It's an area. It's a central part of the state. For those that don't know, around Lake Okeechobee, there are 2 main towns, Pahokee and Belle Glade. They have a massive rivalry in football, and it's called the Muck Bowl because the muck is what they call the soil. Is this rich, dark soil in which they grow their crops, mainly sugarcane, out of Belle Glade. And I have done many stories. There's been, Ricky Jackson, who's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, had graduated, was gone, was out of high school, was in the NFL when I got here. But since then, there's been so many. Anquan Bolden, one that comes to mind. I mean, there's a list of names. Ray McDonald. There's a whole bunch of guys that have come out of here. Kelvin Benjamin, who I covered at Florida State, and the stories, the legends go that that number one, their athletic ability is forged when they're very young. And my wife taught out there, and she saw this. When they burn the sugarcane, the rabbits come running out of the fields, and these kids chase the rabbits, and they are going just chasing them. They're getting all this. They're cutting, they're running, they're trying to just grab them as children. They're doing this, and many of them have said that they credit a lot of their athletic ability from this exercise with their kids is chasing rabbits out of the cane fields. The other thing they do, and I've seen it, I've gone out there when I've done some stories, is the coaches have them run the dike along Lake Okeechobee during the summer. and it's brutally hot out there. It's hotter out there because we get the little bit of the breeze off the Gulf and the Atlantic on the coast. They don't get any breeze out there. It is brutally hot out there. They have them out there before football during the summer, running up and down the dikes for their conditioning. And it's an area that it has not much going for it other than athletics. And I've done a lot. In fact, this past year I did a column on the Muck Bowl and kind of the history of the Muck Bowl because both teams were very good, Pahokee High School and Glade Central High School. That has been my favorite thing when it comes to football. There's been other great stars from other areas. Derek Harper is a great friend of mine. He played many years in the NBA with the Mavericks and the Knicks. Wow. Went to North Shore High School, which is at West Palm Beach. So there's been other great athletes that have come out of the coast. There's still the high schools in the coastal area. But my favorite thing has always been to go out to Belle Glade and talk to those people out there because they don't have much going for them and kind of pump up their whole athletic scene because that's a religion out there.
Right. No, that's fascinating. And you're right. I mean, it is kind of out in the middle of nowhere and it can be forgotten. So yeah, fascinating to hear about how those guys, get their start. Tom, tell me a little bit about journalism right now. I mean, obviously it's gone a much different way. I mean, I remember as a kid, growing up in Boston, you had the Globe and the Herald and locally things like the Patriot Ledger and other newspapers that everybody knew. But now obviously newspapers are getting different. Everything's moving to a video form of media, social media, that type of thing. How has your career changed and transitioned from 1981 until now?
Oh boy, you need a long time to try to talk about the changes that over the last 44 years. But the main thing is the way people consume news, right? They consume news off of the phone, off of the way we're talking now. Back when I started, there was only a newspaper. There were deadlines at night, but there was one deadline. And now it's like constantly on deadline because you constantly need to get news out because people are receiving everything real time. And not just that, it's so first of all, the newspaper aspect of it is absolutely the saddest thing in my career is seeing the demise of the newspapers. I love newspapers. I still get a newspaper thrown in my driveway. I'm one of the few in my neighborhood. We have young reporters who don't look at the newspaper. They are conditioned now that the only thing that matters is our website. And they do not look at the newspaper because they just get all their news off the website. I will purposely not read stories when they're published on the website today because I want to see it in the newspaper tomorrow. If it's something I don't need to know right away, I'll wait to read it in the newspaper. When I'm on the road, a few times I still do travel, I'll get in my car and go try to find a gas station or a Publix or someplace that actually sells a newspaper to pick up the newspaper in the town I'm in. That saddens me incredibly. And then plus it's just the content. It's these companies newspapers aren't the priority anymore, right? That it's consuming news on the website. That's the future, how they're going to make their money. Although some newspapers like us still make money off the newspaper because of the demographics of this area. But most of them, they just don't care. Most of them gone away. Like the Tampa Tribune publishes twice a week. Pittsburgh is, as of next month, I guess in April or May, is not going to have a newspaper, which is incredible. The city of Pittsburgh, not one newspaper. So that's been the main thing. But the way we cover things now, look, when I covered back in the day, when I covered an event, I had to write a game story that I had to hit the button if it was a night game when the game ended because it had to get in the next day's newspaper. But now no matter what time the game is, you're on deadline because people are trying to find a story immediately. They can look and find the stories right away. And also the way we write stories now, look, everybody knows what happened in the game that we're covering tonight. Everybody knows what happened as soon as that game's over. They've seen it on their phone. They've watched. They have access to it. Whereas 30, 40 years ago, they didn't know. The most they were going to find out about it was your game story the next morning. So we have to approach that. We have to write these stories much differently. We no longer write an X's and O's game story describing how each touchdown was scored and all that. We now write more analysis than we ever wrote. We try to take people into a locker room because that's the one thing they're not going to get on their phone. They're not going to get those interviews from the locker room. So they're not going to hear the key players, the people involved in the biggest plays on their phone. That's we can give them that by going to the locker room, and those are the stories. And obviously, you're not writing those on immediate deadline. You go in, you talk to people, you come back, and then you write your column or you write your story. Something that they're just not going to get on their phone. It's completely changed the way we cover things. It's the way of the future. These newspapers aren't coming back. They're going to be more and more going away. Deadlines are horrible because the companies just don't care about the print product. You no longer ever get anything from a night game in the next day's paper. I've gone to call it the 2-day-old newspaper because that's what it is. It's something that happens at this moment at 4:20 today will not be 95% chance is not going to be in tomorrow's newspaper. It's going to be in the next day's newspaper.
Yeah. So Tom, like in terms of stories, you have stories for the newspaper. Are you doing a lot more content for the website and for digital media?
Most news writers are. We try to. 80% of what I write is in both, is in print and the website. Now, my mind is for most stories, we have to post this now. And then after it's posted, we decide which day in print are we going to put it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's 2 days later, if it's not an immediate, if you don't have to know immediate, if it's not something that's breaking news, it might be 2 or 3 days later. But yeah, we're always, the first thought is let's get this online. Second thought is, do we have to repurpose it, or can we just run the story in print tomorrow, the next day, whatever day?
Right. What, in terms of the time that you spent here, what to you was the golden era of reporting here? I mean, what was, if you could go back to a 5-year period and relive it again, what would that look like?
So the Palm Beach Post for the sports was once the Panthers, the Heat, and the Marlins came, and then University of Miami, also down in the South Florida market, was in its heyday. The mid 90s to the mid 2000s in that area were just great. The mid 90s, I covered the Miami Heat, and this is also a time where, it reminded the Heat were in the finals in 2004. The early 2000s, the University of Miami was playing for a national championship. Florida State, which I covered a lot. We also covered Florida State and Florida, which are 400 and 200, 400 miles away from us. We covered those with beat writers. I was a Florida State beat writer for a while. When the Marlins were in the 2 World Series during that time, we had 9 or 10 staffers traveling during the championship for the Heat, during the World Series for the Marlins. I mean, we have just on the road. From sports, our admin now is 4 sports writers. So right. It was unbelievable time. The teams, especially Miami, I covered the one thing I covered that I look back on, and I'll say, the late 90s when the Heat and the Knicks, after Pat Riley came to Miami, they played each other 4 years in a row. They had every storyline you can imagine, with Riley coming here and Alonzo Mourning and Patrick Ewing being best friends. That was a great, great time. Those 4 years of playoffs, I will never experience anything like that. The intensity of those years and covering the team at that time was, I'll never, I feel bad for these young kids. They'll never experience anything like that.
Yeah, no, that's amazing to hear. And it's fun to think back to all those different times. It doesn't seem that long ago, but man, it has been a few years at this point. I want to shift gears a little bit away from journalism and sports, more to the local area. So this is your opportunity to kind of highlight some businesses or people that you really like. What's your favorite place? I mean, you've got a lot of experience, 40, 45, 46 years here. What's your favorite place to go eat if you have to go pick a restaurant?
We love, there's one place that comes out that I think of right away. There's a few places, but on Dixie Avenue, let me see, what's the best one? Well, Two Georges is on the coast, first of all. Actually, Two Georges and the Key Lime House. Areas you can just sit out. There's a bar, you sit out. There's tiki bars. Both of them, you're right on the intercoastal. And you have meals. You can have a drink. Two Georges, they're both in Boynton Beach. Two Georges actually has swings where you sit out the back. You're right on the kind of tables that swing a little bit. They move a little bit, and you're under a like a tiki hut, and you're right on the water. It's really a cool place. Down there are up and down the coast. There are a lot of places like that. Those two come to mind right away. In a new kind of a new restaurant called Elizabetta's. I don't know if you've heard it. It's opened. It's downtown near Clematis Street, which is the hopping street for people a lot younger than me, and I guess a lot of people our age. They've opened up in the last few years, not far from the intercoastal, down in that area where they have the fountains and people just hang out and congregate. That's a nice spot too. But I'm partial to places on the water.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. On that same wavelength, it doesn't have to be a restaurant, but what's a hidden gem of a business that you really like?
I love the parks, and here obviously you can do it year round. It's funny. It took COVID for us to kind of discover these parks because you couldn't do anything else. So we'd go out for a walk, and what are we going to do today? So we got a map, and we said, where can we go different parks that we haven't been? And Riverbend Park in Jupiter, absolutely outstanding. The Loxahatchee River goes through it, so they also have canoeing, kayaking, things like that. But just to walk through it, it's like you're in rural Florida. It's like you're taken back a bunch of years where you just go into the park and you covered canopies of trees and palm trees and walking these paths, and they're winding around. That's probably our favorite because of the summertime. You get the shade. You're in the park. You're not out in the sun. It's really cool. But there are so many of them. Winding Waters at West Palm Beach. You're going around a big lake. It's about a 4-mile path. And then there's two in Boynton, Green Cay and Wotokahatchee they are nature trails. They've built boardwalks going through through the water and in the areas where there are birds and there are all kinds of wildlife through those. They're not as long. They're maybe a half mile to 3/4 of a mile long boardwalks. And, again, these are things that it took COVID for us to really find these types of places. There was nothing else to do. You were stuck in the house. So we got to get out of the house. Let's go for a walk and find these places. And there's so many of them in Florida. But I love the parks.
Yeah, no, it was wild. What a time that was to go through. I totally agree with you on Riverbend, though. It's a great place to go. There are tons of places like that around here that, you never really see unless you really start to look for them. Last question I have for you. If someone just moved here like you did all those years ago, what's some advice you would have to them to, something not to overlook here in the area?
Well, there is so much hidden Florida away from the coast, and just like I said, hit these parks. Take a ride out to just see how the other side, people who don't live in the mansions and the condos of Palm Beach or along the coast anywhere else. There are these areas that you drive through them, you go through them at any time of the year, and so you feel like some of these places you really do feel like you're back 50, 60 years. It's just really cool to go back. Look, I live in Wellington, which is 15 miles from the coast, but you go a little bit farther west of me, and there's the equestrian community, and there's a nice stadium for the equestrian, nice stadium for the polo. But you take a lot of these side roads and you see the barns and you see the equestrian and there's dirt roads and you see them taking the horses out on the road, walking along the dirt road that you would never think you'd never see out in the coast. And there's so much there's just so much history there. And then again, like I said, you go even farther west to the places like Belle Glade, and it's just a different world. And it's people. We are amazed. If you want to like get the entire experience of Florida, you can get it off one road. Start on Southern Boulevard at the end, and you're in Palm Beach, one of the richest zip codes in America. And you take that road straight across the street, across the state, and it doesn't end, but you can take it to Belle Glade, and you can take it right to bump right up into Lake Okeechobee. And now we're the other, we're people who have nothing close to what you see in Palm Beach. And you've seen one side to the other, how people live, the fortunate people in the richest zip code and one of them in the country, to people a lot of people struggling out there and have to work day to day and have to work out in the fields and have to pick their, work in the crops and, and just some of them struggling day to day. It's just an unbelievable, unbelievable look at how in a 40-mile stretch you can go from one end of society to the other.
But yeah, Tom, what a great perspective. I haven't even thought about that drive before. I spend a lot of time on the eastern part of that, but the western part, maybe I make it to the Muck Bowl this year. I don't know, but I check that.
It's great. You talk about a rivalry.
Yeah.
And believe me, there are many people when you see lists of the best high school rivalries, and there's so many of them, but it's always there among the best in the country.
Right. Well, it's incredible. If listeners want to keep up to date with you, if they haven't heard of you at this point, which I'm sure many have with you writing here for so long, but what's the best way to keep up to date and stay informed with all the work that you do?
The palmbeachpost.com, go to sports. All of our great work is there. We cover basically we have the resources to cover three things, and we do it very well. In golf, which I do mainly, the Dolphins and high school sports. And I'm on X at Tom D'Angelo 44. And there, I'm not very active on X when it comes to just non-sports and just throwing out. I don't let people know where we're meeting every night, but I do post all my stories. I do link to everything I write on X. So. And right now, you'll be getting a lot of golf because we're heading into a very busy part of the season when it comes to golf in South Florida.
Right. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time, Tom. Fascinating perspective, and glad to have you as a guest.
I appreciate it. This was very enjoyable. Come on anytime. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much.